Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're starting off with me. I apologize up front, okay? But I don't have anything to throw this year. There's no buzzers. It's not even game show quality. So I probably let all of you down, and I apologize. However, as you all know, drug and alcohol training is required on an annual basis. So in this course, you'll learn about what meets the requirements of 65.14B1, which is the drug and alcohol training for DOT, effects and consequences of prohibited drug use and alcohol misuse. It's a refresher on Embark's drug and alcohol policy and a reminder of our employee assistance program. 49 CFR Part 655.14B1 requires that you're here for 60 minutes. You're welcome. We'll talk about, again, what I just talked about, the effects and consequences. The COPTA substance abuse policy, which I will say one of the things that we're looking at with the ATU is potentially looking at this again. I won't spoil what we're going to change, but we are looking at this. But anytime that we make any changes to the COPTA substance abuse policy, we negotiate that with the ATU. In general, it basically outlines the Department of Transportation mandated urine, drug, and breath specimen alcohol testing procedures for employees. In essence, what happens currently is there's only two ways to get tested, right? You got to pee in the cup, or you got to breathe in the little tube, like you're getting a DUI, or not getting a DUI, hopefully. Let's go with that one, all right? So, safety-sensitive employees, this is those that are in this room. Persons who operate a revenue service vehicle, who are those people? Every single one of you, because if you're a mechanic, you got to test them. There we go. Person who operates a non-revenue service vehicle when required to be operated by a holder of a CDL. Don't have a lot of those. Person who controls the dispatch or movement of a revenue service vehicle. Any dispatchers in here? I don't see any. All right. Person who maintains a revenue service vehicle or equipment used in revenue service. Got any mechanics in here? Service people in here? Congratulations, you got to be in here. And persons who carry a firearm for security purposes. We got none of those in here. No, Kurt, do not do it. Or at least don't let me see you on a bus with it, please. All right. Wow, that really doesn't look like anything that I made, but apparently that's what it looks like. Prohibited substance, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, opioids, amphetamines, and PCP. I can't actually say phencylamine, so you're just going to hear me say it PCP because that's what you got. I'm not that bright. All right, purpose of testing: detect the use of prohibited drugs by urine testing, detect the misuse of alcohol by breath testing, deter the use of drugs and the misuse of alcohol by educating and training safety-sensitive employees about the safety and health ramifications of drug and alcohol. There we go. Reasons for testing: pre-employment, urine only; fitness for duty, urine only; over 90 days absence; reasonable suspicion; post-accident; and random. So this is another one of your questions. What percentage of people get tested at Embark for random? 50%. One out of every two people, although since it's random, we just throw it in like the lottery and you get drawn. So some people get tested 3 times a year, some people get tested none at all. That's why it's random. Non-DOT testing: DOT recertification physicals, return to work examinations under 90 days, and upon return to work after voluntary rehab. On-site, we do randoms, reasonable suspicions, post-accidents. Off-site, we do DOT recertification exams, return to work physicals, pre-employment physicals. Consequences of testing positive. Now here's where we come to the beauty of our policy. If you don't pass this test, you don't get to work here anymore, okay? So as of right now, Embark has a zero tolerance policy, which means if you test positive for an illegal substance, test positive for the misuse of a prescription, test positive over a 0.04 blood alcohol, you will be terminated. There is no, we don't have alternatives at this point. Embark has little tolerance for tests positive for a prescription you failed to previously disclose. And let me say this, because we do this every year, but I just want to remind you, you can be tested and it not be for an accident that's your fault, right? Everybody knows you can be tested in an accident. So your prescriptions are very important, that you communicate with us what prescriptions that you're on. Because the last thing I want to happen is that you're in an accident and you forgot to tell me that you're on this prescription that could be against regulation, or that you can't take for 48, 72. We've had some prescriptions that they had to wait an entire week before they could drive again. So it's extremely important that you communicate with your physicians. If you go to the urgent care ER, that you let them know, hey, I'm a safety sensitive. Ask them about the side effects, and then if you do get something that they say, hey, this has this type of side effects, or it's in that opiate class or whatnot, you communicate with us and let us know, okay? So we can check in, see how long, if any, that you have to be off. So a lot of the prescriptions now that we deal with, it's like, hey, you just got to take it 8 hours before you come to work. That's usually the case, but it's not always the case. So please check in with us, because the last thing I want you to do is somebody else hits that big bread truck that you're driving, and then you're the one who gets the a positive UA, right? All right. Test less than 0.04 but more than 0.02 on a blood alcohol test. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the blood alcohol and how that, but if you test over a 0.02, you're sent home immediately. And then if it happens again, you're fired. Okay, so there's 0.02, you're sent home immediately because you can't be 0.02 or above. If it happens again, we'll have this fun thing called a pre-D meeting. They're exciting. They're just great. Everybody likes to film them and everything. And we'll say, hey, don't do that again, because if you do, you no longer work here. So we'll talk more about the blood alcohol levels, your blood alcohol levels. Because some of you are like, oh man, I can kick back at 12, I'll be good in 4 hours. No. That's not how your system works, no matter how a big old boy you are. It's just not how our systems work, okay? All right. A drug is any substance other than food which changes the way the body or mind functions. Stimulants. Speed up the brain and central nervous systems. Example, caffeine. Right? Coffee, tea, nicotine, amphetamine, speed, cocaine, and diet pills. Depressants or downers slow down the brain and central nervous systems. Examples are alcohol, beer, wine, vodka, gin. Heroin. So did you see how we went there? Wine, vodka, gin, heroin. Heroin was the next one. Tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and hallucinogens. These drugs alter the user's state of consciousness, distort auditory and visual sensories. Examples are LSD, ecstasy, magic mushrooms, and marijuana. Or basically anything that Aaron Rodgers does during the off season. There you go, in a dark room. Some of you guys get that joke. Some of you need to watch football. So, drug use trends. Why we went from, those of you who have been here over 4 years know that when we used to random, it was only 25% of everyone. Forever, it was 25%. It was actually 10% at one point, then it bumped up to 25%, and now we're at 50%. And why is that? It's because the utilization of illicit drugs have shot way up. As of now, one out of every 5 of the population, 12 or older in 2021, has used some type of illicit drug. 10.1% of the population, 12 or older in 2015. So that's more than doubled. Or people are more truthful. I don't know. You make your own decisions. The numbers are probably low. Substance abuse disorders in 2020, 40.3 million people aged 12 or older, or 14.5% of the population. 28.3 had an alcohol disorder, 18.4 had an illicit drug use, and 6.5 million people had both drug and illicit drug use because, unfortunately, sometimes you get in that gateway, right? The beer doesn't take the edge away. Now I got to take this pill, and now I take this pill and can't get a prescription for it, and so now I'm using something a little harder that I get from the street, and it just continues to happen. It's a continual cycle that we continue to see build year over year. Binge drinking. I'm not going to preach to you guys about tobacco use because I know my audience. But 22.2% were binge alcohol users in the past month. 21.4% used illicit drugs in the past year. 18% of those who use illicit drugs was marijuana. 3.7% used stimulants. 3.4% opioids. 2.6% used hallucinogen, which I think is crazy scary to think that you guys could trip on something that you have no idea. I've told this story before. When I was a very young man, I admit I've used illegal substances more than once. And yes, I inhaled. Okay? Let me be very clear. But one thing I never did was anything that was a hallucinogen because I met a dude when I was about, 13, 14 years old who thought he was a cup of orange juice. He went on a bad trip and he never came out of the trip. And he was just stuck that way in this institution. And when he would fall over, he would yell, "I'm spilling! I'm spilling!" I was like, "All right, bro, we ain't doing that. That's the one." Like all the other stuff I've tried. That is not one. Because I never wanted to be OJ. Because it didn't end up well for OJ. Never mind. Some of you guys got that joke. Some of you guys are too young to understand the OJ joke. That's okay. That's all right. That's okay. I'm not killing it up here. Did you see what I did? That was never mind. All right. 60% of all drug overdose deaths involved opioids, and that is a concern. In fact, if you've been reading the papers over the last 3 or 4 years, you continue to hear about the opioid crisis that we have, where people are going and they get injured, and so they're like, "Hey, just take this little pill, and it's going to make you feel better." But then now I got to take 2 pills to make me feel better. Now I got to take 3, and that month-long supply took me a week to get through. And we continue to see it. And so what I will tell you today is if you're running into any of these issues, you come and meet with me privately. Don't say it out today because that just makes this really weird. And this isn't that kind of group. Okay? But we can talk about it privately. If somebody tells me, "Hey, look, I've got this type of addiction," or "I'm having struggles with XYZ," and we talk about it in private, we might be able to preserve your position, right? Get you help. Because that's what that team thing's about. But if you don't tell me, or you tell me right before you're about to get in that little room and pee in that little cup, can't help you. I can't help you. You've already been served dinner. You got to pay. You got to pay. So you got to tell us beforehand. If you do, then we can interject and help. When I talk about the EAP, the other thing that happens is I know this, having lived in a house in college where maybe there was some fun activities that happened there. You're influenced by those that you're around. So if you have somebody who's an addict in your household, our EAP actually covers those individuals that are in your household as well. So it is important to know that because unfortunately those that we're around end up influencing us, and it could move us to a poor influence. This past year, within the last year, I had to terminate somebody because they came back positive on a random. She said, "Hey, I was just with some friends. I hadn't seen them since God knows when, and we took these gummies." You got a CDL, you can't take those gummies. Try the Harborough's gummy bears, not the other, try some type of different gummy, not that gummy, okay? All right? And that's what happens. She had never done it, but she was with people that she had seen, that she used to hang out with way back in the day. And it cost her a job. And it broke my heart because I genuinely cared for her as one of our employees, and I hated to see that happen over one bad decision. All right. So, percent of workforce testing positive for drugs has increased by 10% in the last 5 years. Since 2013, marijuana positivity. I love how we marijuana positivity. Increases in pre-employment and post-accidents have more than doubled. Post-accident drug testing positivity has nearly doubled since 2013, from almost 1% to almost 2%. 75% of adult illicit drug users are employed, so that's good. Transportation, fourth most likely for profession and trade for illicit users. We don't really see that in bus operators as much as we do the long haul travels, right? Mike Shaw Sr. was a long haul trucker. I don't think he used any speed or anything like that, but I don't know because he was always tall and skinny, and it made me suspicious, okay? So I'm just saying, when you're on a 16-hour run, 24-hour run, whatever, back in his day, they didn't have as many requirements as they do now about how long you can run, right? So users are more likely to change jobs frequently, 2.2 times more likely to ask to leave work early, 2 times more likely to have multiple employers in a year, almost 3.5 times more likely to have been fired, 2 times more likely to have left voluntarily. The federal budget for drug control in 2020, which was the last number I could find, was $35 billion. But the national cost of drug on the workforce alone is $276 billion because of things like poor quality and quantity of work, attendance problems, accidents, healthcare costs shoot up 3 to 4 times what the average healthcare costs when somebody's addicted.
So alcohol is the most widely used drug in America. It's the most widely used drug. So when you're coming to work, or say for instance, you're out drinking with your friends the night before, you have to give yourself time, your body time, to release all of those toxins from your body before you come to work. So if you have 2 or 3 beers and you're to work at 7 a.m., based on your height and your weight, your body may not be able to come to work because you've consumed so much alcohol. Alcohol depresses the central nervous system and slows the activity of the brain and spinal cord. 20% of the alcohol is absorbed through the stomach walls, 80% through the small intestine. Too much drinking can result in, and this is something, I didn't do this. We're going to give all the credit to Michael Shaw. Which parts of the body have lots of water? The brain, the liver, and muscle tissue. Short-term effects on your health when you're drinking alcohol: it suppresses the part of the brain that controls judgment, resulting in a loss of inhibitions. It also affects physical coordination. So you're going to have blurred vision, slurred speech, and loss of balance. The long-term effects: liver failure, loss of brain cells, irritated stomach lining, and bleeding from stomach ulcers. You're also going to have heart failure, epilepsy, obesity, and sexual problems. Is alcohol drinking bad? What do you guys think? Outside of this, Marilyn, tell me your thoughts.
My thought is all things in moderation.
Okay, I'll give you that. Doctors sometimes recommend that you drink a beer or a glass of wine per day. Per day. Drinking becomes too much when it causes or elevates the risk of alcohol-related problems, complicates other health problems. There are increased risks for alcohol-related problems for men and women. Men who drink 5 or more drinks in a day, 15 or more per week, or women who drink 4 or more drinks in a day, 8 or more per week. We don't have anybody in here that drinks 8 or more per week, do we? So a man or a woman who drinks, let's say, 4 drinks and has a body weight of 120 is listed as legally intoxicated. It depends on, so if you're wanting to sober up, how long does it take? It depends on the person. BAC drops about 0.015% per hour if a person has no more drinks. So if a person who is 150 pounds has a BAC of 0.08, more than 3 hours before his or her BAC drops below 0.04. So if you're at 0.04 and you're on the job, we send you home. It's 0.04 is above what you should have in order to operate a COPPA vehicle. If you test 0.02 to 0.3 or below 0.04, then we'll send you home. You'll do what we call a confirmation test. We'll send you home for 8 hours, and then you'll be allowed to come back to work because you haven't gone above that 0.04 threshold. Now, I'm not saying that for everyone to go out and take the chance on getting called in for an alcohol test. So what else helps you sober up? A cold shower, fresh air, exercise, coffee. Nothing but time will sober a person up. So now let's get into marijuana. So for marijuana, I want to go into that by saying, just because you have a medical marijuana card does not exclude you from taking a test and testing positive. That is not securing your job. We are regulated by FTA. Medical marijuana cards do not comply with us. If you test positive for marijuana, you're out of a job. Now, if Megan comes in and she has a medical marijuana card, she's not a safety sensitive employee. But is that to say that if she tests positive for medical marijuana, that she's gonna be fired? Not necessarily so, because she's not a safety sensitive employee. She may be required to go through the EAP program and follow the follow-up procedures to come back into the workplace. So for marijuana, it's the most common illegal drug around. Comes from a plant called cannabis. When you smoke a joint, the THC goes into the lungs, then into the heart, which pumps into the bloodstream, which takes it directly to the brain. Now, we will have a couple of questions, test questions over this. So if you have any questions, let me know, okay? So marijuana is smoked. It's a joint pipe or bong. It's vaporized. It's ingested through oils or food. We have the brownies. We have cookies. I have had an individual that tested positive because they may have ingested marijuana through a brownie that they got from a party. Also, I've had people test positive for pre-employment because they've put the oils on their knee for knee pain. And that THC is getting through the bloodstream, so it's causing a positive result when it comes to marijuana. Estimated 15.2 million past month users. U.S. ranks first for prevalence of use. It's the THC is the main active ingredient. So when your doctor gives you a prescription or tells you to go get this medication for your needs, make sure that you let them know that you are a safety sensitive employee. You are your best advocate. I'm not there, so I can't tell them, okay, they're driving a bus, they have to do this, they have to do that. You have to notify your physician of what's going on. The effects of marijuana when smoked, it's almost immediate, lasts 1 to 3 hours. When consumed, effects last 30 to 60 minutes later. It can last up to 4 hours. It binds to cannabinoid receptors in brain. So here are the long-term effects. Damaged cells and tissues in the body that fight disease, lack of motivation. So you have somebody, hey dude, what's going on? I need some Doritos, you know? Or I need some cookies, I need something. Or they're sitting in a seat and they may be just relaxed. Nothing's bothering them. They just want to go through the day with no worries whatsoever. Effects on memory. Long-term users' memory recall still impaired 1 week after last use. So it has a big effect on you. It can build up and deteriorate critical life skills over time, may worsen in those with mental disorders or because of the normal aging process. Okay, so marijuana concentrates. We've gone over this a little bit. Highly potent THC concentrated mass, more intense physical or psychological high. Common names: 710, dabs, wax, honey, honey oil, butter, shatter. So there's a number of names that I know some, but I'm not going to say them. Cocaine and crack is the second most commonly abused drug, derived from cocoa bush leaves. 1.9 million past month users. So we're getting all this information from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Hydrochloride, salt, or powder, crack, or Febreze are usually other names. It's snorted, injected, and smoked. When it's smoked, it's through usually using glass pipes, light bulbs, water bottles, soda cans, etc. So in dealing with some individuals, I've noticed that, kids are crushing it up. They're snorting it, and I just can't believe that people are doing this to their bodies. It's especially in young kids. There are a number of teenage individuals that are subjecting themselves to cocaine and fentanyl and anything else that they can get their hands on, thinking that they're going to get a quick high. And once you get that high, you're going to want something else to keep you there. So it's something that if you're having a problem with any of these drugs, come to the HR department so that we can sit down and talk to you about how to help you overcome these issues, whether it be drug use, alcohol use. We want you to be safe. We want our customers to feel safe, and we're just wanting you to know that we're here for you to help you in any way that we can. Timeline of cocaine. When injected, its effect is immediate. It lasts 10 to 20 minutes or more to start. When smoked, it affects almost immediately. It lasts 5 to 10 minutes. When snorted, it lasts 15 to 30 minutes. It blocks removal of dopamine. So these drugs, you know, a lot of times you have to go through counseling. You have to go through, when we get to meth and all of that, they have a particular drug that they give you. It's called, I can't think of it right now, but it helps those who are addicted to drugs. The only downside to that is you have to take this drug for however long that doctor sees fit. If that person decides, okay, I want to stop right now, they can't just stop because they have to wean themselves off of that. So the drug that I'm speaking of is Suboxone. So you go through the counseling, some people go through in-treatment care. Well, in order to move forward, you have to go and take a drug test. They start you out weekly. From that weekly, if you are going for 2 weeks, you can move forward. You have to come back for 2 weeks, and then it's going to be ongoing until that doctor sees fit to start you at just one time a month. But at that time, you cannot just say, no, I don't want to take this anymore, because your brain is trying to get those receptors back. So you have to be on this medication. I've known some people that have been on it for a year, 2 years. They're taking it a half a pill a day, but it's something that they just can't get away from.
What are the effects if you go cold turkey? What's the effects?
Well, the effects are different for everybody, but if you try to go cold turkey, you may go into relapse mode within a week or two. It just depends on the individual. Now, if you've been on, I've had people that have been on amphetamines, they've had ecstasy, they've had meth, they've used oxycodone, Percocet, and they started out small, they built their way up, started taking it 2 or 3 times a day. You go into that survival of the fittest. They want to find a different drug that's going to help them, because Percocet may not be working anymore. Oxycodone may not be working anymore, but they want that high, so they try to go cold turkey. Well, you're going to be in those withdrawal phases. So withdrawal is going to come back. Suboxone is only going to get you so far as long as you're taking it. But that's not to say that you can't eventually come off, but what's your chances of relapse? So cold turkey is going to set you haven't given your mind and your body enough time to get those drugs out of your system, so you're in withdrawal. You're going to have to go into a treatment plan. You're going to have to do whatever it takes to get you to where you need to be. But you're going to always have that feeling, do I want this? Do I need it? How bad do I want it? That's when you have kids going out stealing medication, or you have people out selling this medication. It's up to you to be a good advocate. I mean, put the drugs up, out of reach of kids. If you're not using it, I would tell you to take it back to the pharmacy, get rid of it, or put it up somewhere to where you won't subject yourself to wanting it all the time. There's a difference between needing it and wanting it. And if you just want it, you're going to do whatever you have to do. Any other questions? So the effects of cocaine makes people feel energetic, talkative, alert, euphoric, increase in self-control and confidence. High doses cause panic attacks, psychotic episodes such as paranoia, and violent behavior. Physical effects: blood vessels thicken and constrict, reduce flow of oxygen to heart. Overdose can cause seizure or heart failure. Snorting cocaine can cause sinus infection and loss of smell. So this is your tolerance level. The ones on top are the high, and then as you go on through, by the fourth or fifth time, your body starts going through depression mode. You're not getting that immediate effect that you're wanting, because your body is telling you, okay, I need something else. I need something more. So the chronic use of cocaine on the brain increased risk of strokes, reduced attention, insatiable hunger, insomnia and hypersomnia, lethargy. On your heart, it's increased risk of infraction. These are the signs and symptoms of cocaine. So you have nosebleeds, talkativeness. If you have a person that doesn't normally talk, I promise you guys, I don't normally talk, but I'm not using. It just depends on the person. They have anxiety, not hungry or sleepy, increased temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure.
Amphetamines, we're going up. Amphetamines bring you up. They were discovered during World War II to keep soldiers and pilots going for long missions. It was common use when I was a young woman, many, many years ago, in the 80s. Amphetamines were the way to go. Truck drivers took them and drove 24 hours. Big, huge semis down the road, fast as they would go. No governors on them, popping all kinds of amphetamines to stay awake. You go further, faster, make more money. A lot more crashes. A lot more deadly, deadly crashes. The physical effects of amphetamines are hyperactivity, dilated pupils, flushing, tachycardia, dizziness, seizure, stroke, all the things, all the bad things. Psychological effects of amphetamines is you feel euphoric, you feel like you can concentrate and have great energy, and then you have anxiety, irritability, and aggression and paranoia. So for all of the up, there's a really ugly down with every drug. Withdrawal, right to this slide, with withdrawal. May last for days, weeks, or months. Mental fatigue, mental depression, increased appetite, anxiety, agitation, suicidal ideations. Hallucinogenics, ecstasy. Ecstasy is a synthetic. It doesn't come from a plant. It's made in labs. Most of us know the effects of those types of things. Other chemicals or substances are added to it, such as caffeine and amphetamines. We start mixing things all together. We just create a nice poison for ourselves, and then our mind gets all altered, and bad things happen. Common reported effects: strong sense of inner peace and self-acceptance, diminished aggression, hostility, and jealousy, extreme mood lift and euphoria, feelings of empathy, intensification of body senses, stimulation, arousal, and hyperactivity. You also black out. Physical side effects: difficulty concentrating, jaw clenching, grinding of teeth, lack of appetite, and dry mouth. All just really pleasant symptoms. After effects reported to last up to 3 to 7 days, all of the bad stuff. Low drive, motivation, fatigue, irritability, it's all just bad. So that's where the cycle comes in. You don't want to feel bad, so you don't ever want that low, so you just have to keep being high and staying high. And whatever it takes to keep you high And that's when you know you are in a bad, bad place. You're somewhere in between illicit use, abuse, and addiction. And if we can break that cycle anywhere through intervention at your job, we want to do it because it can get away from you. Some people can smoke pot and never do anything else. And some people can smoke pot and slowly disintegrate into other things and ruin their life. And once you hit addiction, it's almost impossible to come back. Less than 5% of the people who go through a treatment stay clean. The average addict relapses 7 times. They lose their job, they lose their family, they lose their financial security, and many, many, many times they lose their life. It can be very slow and seductive because it's not an after-school special. You don't snuff or smoke some pot or smell some airplane glue today and sell your baby for crack tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. But it does happen. And everybody sort of has their own path. Some people it would never happen for, and some people it can happen in a few weeks' time. Okay? After effects, we've talked about all of the after effects. None of them, there are no good things, no good outcomes, as we say. There are no good outcomes. MDA, have you heard of MDA? Sometimes called SAS. Okay. It's very much like an ecstasy type drug. It's usually in powder form, and more than it is actual pill form anymore. But it does a serotonin and dopamine release, and it is more toxic than ecstasy. It can kill you easier. But it works really fast. Affects 3 to 5 hours, serotonin, euphoric, somewhat of a stoning effect. You haven't, it really slows like your reflexes down to where you're just almost like catatonic. We all heard about meth. You see that on every day on your riders. How do you know? I'm hearing sores, I'm hearing picking, teeth, missing teeth.
Their actions, they can't be still.
Okay, agitation, moving. The way they talk, how's that?
They rattle 90 dozen.
Oh, Lord, I do that. Say it again, Anthony.
They talk as they're talking to you. They're talking to you so low and they're not moving their mouth. You can't hear them.
Okay. Okay. Anybody want that for their life? No. Anybody want to get up tomorrow and say, you know, today is the day I become a meth addict? Think that would be a good life choice for me. Okay. Well, how do you think these people get that way? Do you think they got up in the morning? I'm sorry. Say, yeah. Yeah. And most of them haven't started with meth. Most of them have started with something else. And they get in that community and they find that. And it's just another fast. Yes. Yes. I would agree. Very high potential for abuse and addiction. Some physical and psychological effect. Physical and psychological effect is amphetamines. Withdrawal symptoms last up to 10 days. That's the longest. 10 days withdrawal symptoms. Depression, fatigue, excessive sleeping, increased appetite, mental depression. Meth has a real mental impact. It has a really bad mental impact. One of the worst. It is such a dangerous drug. Yes, I'll see if I can answer it.
That means, I've heard that you can't detect it in the drug test after so many hours or days.
Meth?
Yeah, methamphetamine.
Days. For sure. If you do it one time, it will be in your system, detectable by a drug screen for days. Days. If you know somebody who does meth one time and never does it again, I don't know them. Okay? Because they do it. If you do it, the chance you're going to do it again is extremely high. And that builds up in your system, builds up and builds up. And so instead of a few days, It's a few weeks, it's still detectable.
But it doesn't stay in your system long periods of time.
It does. It does stay in your system long periods of time. Marijuana can stay in your system with regular, semi-regular use for at least 30 days. It'll stay in your hair until your hair completely grows out. We don't do hair follicle tests. Say that again? That's actually 45 days for marijuana. Yeah, and it is depending on the use. If you smoke marijuana or take a gummy once or twice a week, if you stop within probably 30 days, you wouldn't be able to detect it anymore. But just like Chris said, the more of it you use, the more often you use, the longer it stays in your system because it builds up and it lives in those areas we were talking about where a lot of water is. Okay. Crystal meth, again, super, super bad. Very easy to make. An investment of $150 in product can make you $10,000 worth of drug. So that is not an invitation to a side hustle. Okay, that is not an invitation to a side. You are way too alert. All right. Okay, all right. All right, crystal meth effects. We know all kinds of bad stuff. Become psychotic. We have bad hygiene. You all have said all of it. You all have said all of it. These are some of our people that have examples of people who have partook in meth after a while. Like they said, we talked about the picking and the teeth and those kinds of things. It's a very physically demeaning drug also. Very paranoid. Opium makes things like morphine, codeine, piperine, and heroin. Anybody in here know that they are allergic to morphine or codeine? Anybody in here know that they're allergic to it? Morphine, codeine. I'm allergic to codeine. So feels like ants are crawling all over me. I am very strange. But forever, codeine was in every cough syrup there was. If you went and got cough syrup for your 5-year-old, it had codeine in it. And you gave it to them because they would go to sleep. Right? Stop coughing, leave you alone a little bit, and go to sleep. That's right. Yes. That's right. Morphine. We know all the bad stuff about morphine and all the good stuff about morphine. If you have cancer and you're in pain and they give you some morphine under your tongue, it's close to God. The pain relief is so effective. If you are sick and frail and have a disease and they put a morphine patch on you, the pain relief it gives you is wonderful. But it is not for everybody. Lots of people are allergic to it, and if you misuse it, you will kill yourself. We know we can look at all of the effects of morphine. Effects on performance: if you're on morphine, difficulty following instructions, diminished reflexes, depressed consciousness, those kinds of things. Heroin, we know heroin is really terrible. We know that it's usually injected. We know that it's more potent than morphine. Okay. Codeine, we talked about codeine. Most widely used in the world. Oxycodone, hydrocodone, and hydromorphone. Yep. Lora tabs. Cheap, easy to find, and effective. Effects usually last up to 12 hours. Relieve severe and agonizing pain and cough. Acts directly on your central nervous system. It shuts down your central nervous system. Very, very, very addictive. Prescription drug abuse. Prescription drug abuse is using prescription medication in a way that isn't prescribed by a healthcare practitioner or using someone else's prescription. Kids as young as 12 are trying prescription drugs to get high. Prescription drugs are easier to obtain. People think they are safer because they have been prescribed. Misuse of laxatives and diuretics and diet aids to improve personal appearance. Mixing alcohol and prescription drugs. Use of codeine cough syrup to achieve intoxication, and misuse of stimulants to enhance performance. You are using a drug illegally if it is prescribed to you and you are taking twice the amount that you have been prescribed. You're misusing a drug. You are misusing a drug. You are misusing a drug if it has been prescribed to a loving family member, someone in your circle of life, and you take their prescription. That is a misuse. It is an illegal use of a drug. Off-label. Drug trends and demographics for opioids. Estimates of recent initiatives, pain reliever, second only to marijuana. Consumer, this, I guess, surprised me. Almost 100% of the world's total of hydrocodone or Vicodin consumed by the U.S. 81% of world total for oxycodone or Percocet in the United States. Yep. Where's it made? All over the world. All over the world. Here. Yeah. Percent of prescriptions for opioids. In 1991, 76 million prescriptions for opioids were written by legal medical doctors. 2013, 207 million. I don't know what it is in 2023. We don't have that. We don't have those stats yet, but I can guarantee you it's way higher. Way higher. Yeah. Non-medical pain relievers and heroin dependence on non-medical pain relievers associated 40-fold increase of dependence of heroin. However, less than 4% of people who use non-medical pain relievers started using heroin within 5 years. Increased risk factor, about 4/5 of recent heroin initiates previously used non. The point of this slide is you're going to continue to need something stronger and more of it, up to the point of heroin. Heroin user demographics. In the 60s to the early 80s, the first user ages were young men. Now we're talking about like the Vietnam War era, where there was a lot of use of heroin. There's a lot of opium use. A lot of young men went to war. So that's who was using it. White versus non-white first-time users were equally represented because we were talking about a population of young men as majority of the users. Mostly urban, and their first opioid use was heroin. Today, our people are starting to use it at about 23 years old. 90% of the first-time users are Caucasian. The majority of them live in rural and suburban areas. And 75% of them have already used a non-medical pain reliever. So they're working their way up to it. They're not experimenting with it for the first time in the situation that they were experimenting with it in the 60s and 70s. PCP, I don't spend a lot of time on PCP, probably because it is so scary to me because I have seen it firsthand. This is the drug that you sort of take off all your clothes in the middle of the street and cluck like a chicken. Okay? Okay. That's probably accurate. Yes. I have seen 5 fully functioning police officers not be able to take down about a 150-pound woman who was on PCP. They could not get her wrestled. And it makes you feel, I'm assuming, it must make you feel like you are invincible. Okay? But you also have a tendency to jump off buildings when you're on PCP. Nope. Yeah, you don't know you've hurt yourself. Yeah. So I don't feel like, and maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, that anyone in this room really has a significant PCP problem. Okay? You probably see it. You may have seen it in your experiences, but I don't feel like that is a real big drug of concern for us here. But it is a drug that people get to down the line when everything else stops working. But you will die from it, period. You will die. The psychological effects, you become suicidal. After a while, you have to stay high all the time or you think you're dying. All right. Whew, I'm coming in on time. Here are some resources for you. If you feel like you are at a place where you could be on the tipping point, we have an EAP. I say it every day, more than once, to somebody. Please contact our EAP. Embark pays for you to have this service. Every month, Embark writes a check to Alliance Work. This is how many employees we have. This is how much we're paying for it. So our employees will have it to use. Okay? If you live with somebody who you feel like this is the situation for them and it's out of control for you and is affecting you, call the EAP. I promise you they're not going to come drag you out of your house or your loved one. They have licensed counselors to talk to you. They have substance abuse professionals to help you. We would much rather get a call from the EAP that says, we have taken this employee, they have contacted us, we are taking them, we are going to work with them, and we are going to let you know when they are through their program and can come back to work. So much better situation than for you to get a random drug screen and for us to lose you forever, which is what will happen. It has happened since I have been here, very, very rarely, but it has happened. And it is devastating to lose somebody that way. And it's devastating to think that we are just letting them go back out into the world and not really know what happens to them. Okay? The takeaway is our greatest offender is alcohol. Our greatest offender is alcohol. If you feel like you have an issue with alcohol, you don't have to come tell me. You don't have to tell your supervisor. You just call that EAP. It's on page 29 of your benefits book. If you don't know the number, you don't know what to do, you can send us an email, you can give us a call, whoever you feel most comfortable with, and we will get you there. Because your safety is the most important thing to us, and the safety of those around you. Nobody wants to be responsible for that accident or for an injury to someone that they work with, right? Okay. So, here are all the resources. Your first call, text, or email can be to us, but it doesn't have to be. It can go right to the EAP. There's the information for the EAP. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. If you go to the roadmap.us, and if you haven't been to the roadmap.us, you are missing out. Everything fun we do is at the roadmap.us. Everything we're doing. And it has this information on the roadmap.us also. All right. We will not suffer you through the quiz, because I know that you've all taken all this in. You've been very responsive, so we don't have to do the quiz. You've all already passed the quiz, so good for you. Yay. Are there any questions? Any comments, anything you want us to talk about before my time has come to an end? Which I know this is a hard subject, but I absolutely love being here. I love getting to see you guys and spend a little time with you, and we all appreciate you being here because we know that your time is valuable and important to you too. So, any final comments or thoughts? Say that one more time. Benadryl is something that you will have to monitor on your own. You do not have to tell us that you're taking Benadryl. You need to educate yourself, and you need to know yourself. If you know that Benadryl makes you kind of loopy, do not take it at 2 o'clock in the morning if you've got a report time at 5:30 in the morning, okay? Right, you want to give yourself 8 to 10 hours after a Benadryl, okay? And only use it. I would check with your doctor because it can have repercussions to your heart, it can elevate your blood pressure, it can mess with some other prescriptions. Because just because it's an over-the-counter doesn't mean it's particularly good for you. We may not find it in a drug screen if it's a random, but if you're in there, we can't stay awake, stumbling around, you may get pulled for a random, okay? And there's going to be concerns about that activity, okay? Any other questions? Okay, my time is over. Thank you all so much. Jesse and Jason are here to spend the next hour with you telling you about all the great things coming down the pike for Embark, and they are exciting, so stay tuned.